this is Ala. I wanted to share with you our first frozen embryo transfer attempt. So this is beginning of 2018. We decided to start off the year with a trip to Bermuda at the beginning of January. This was our first vacation together as husband and wife that we had gone on together since our honeymoon 5 years previous. That wasn't a family trip or for a wedding. It was just husband and wife together on a trip. And before we attempted to do another try for making this baby thing work, we needed to get away. We needed to reconnect. My only requirement for the vacation destination is that I wanted somewhere where we could snorkel. And it was pretty hard to find a spot that wasn't in Europe because it costs a lot of money to get there, and that wasn't on the Zika virus warning list. So we ended up finding Bermuda, and we had a wonderful time there, and I'll tell you more about that one day, but I definitely recommend it. It's a 3 or 4 hour plane ride from Toronto if you're coming from that way, and it's absolutely gorgeous and beautiful, and definitely check it out. So my point with that is that we needed to unplug and unwind and reconnect with each other before we even attempted or started to try to get back on this crazy roller coaster called fertility treatments. So in March 2018, we were finally ready. We had one frozen embryo from our second IVF attempt, and we're ready to give it a go. So my doctor had me start on estrogen pills, taken vaginally 3 times a day in order to thicken up my uterus lining, to hopefully create a cozy little nest for our little embryo, aka for implementation. I continued this for about 2.5 weeks until my first ultrasound. But when we went there and we went through the ultrasound, it turned out that my lining wasn't thick enough. It measured around 6.7 millimeters, and they wanted it closer to 8 millimeters. So I was instructed to continue on with the vagina pills, as I call them, estrogen, and to return in for another week, a week later, to see what the progress was. A week later, I returned to the clinic for a second ultrasound, and this time my uterus lining had actually decreased in thickness. It measured around 6.4 millimeters and from 6.7 that it was the week before. And so they instructed that this cycle had to be canceled. There was just no point in putting a healthy embryo into that environment. So obviously, we were really disappointed. The thing I was most pissed off about was that I had been taking these annoying vagina pills every 8 hours for over 3 weeks, and there was nothing to show for it. And now I had to start all over again with another attempt to having a baby. And I must admit something to you. Thinking back to our second IVF cycle, we had transferred the 2 best quality embryos and frozen the third, which wasn't as good quality as the 2 that we had transferred. Throughout this whole attempt at the frozen embryo transfer, I couldn't help but think to myself, well, if neither of those 2 best quality embryos didn't catch, what were the chances of this third embryo They will. And then we didn't even get to that stage. I told my thoughts to our doctor, and at our next appointment after this canceled cycle, and she said to me, don't disregard this embryo just yet. I have a close friend who recently gave birth to a healthy baby, and that embryo was exactly the same quality as your frozen one right now. So that gave me a really, really nice big boost of hope, and made me realize to not give up on the little embryo. That life had been created with the same kind of quality of embryo, and it got me pumped and it got me motivated to try again. So next post will be for our next IVF, frozen embryo transfer.